The VAR Show. The one place for your weekly football update.
Hola, very warm welcome to the VAR show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues. Until today, we are going to continue a theme of interviews. We have a very experienced and successful coach with us today. We have Mr. P. N. Sivaji with us. So, Mr. Sivaji has managed the likes of Singapore national team between 1992 and 1993, and his CV includes a lot of other achievements and high-profile positions in various clubs and teams. So without wasting much time, I would like to thank Mr. Sivaji for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to the show. And I would like to begin by asking, how are you and what are you doing during this pandemic period?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. I've heard a little bit of it from Steve Darby, and I've gone in online to check some of the interviews. So we got a list of illustrious names that you have already spoken to. So I'm not in that category, but I'm happy to be in that group anyway now. I'm okay. I mean, it's a new challenge. It's something that we have to learn to live with. I think for the rest of our lives. It has not been easy, I must admit, but I think at the end of the day, we either adapt or we die. So I've chosen to adapt and not die.
So what are you doing? Are you reading football books or watching matches or something during the quarantine or lockdown period?
Yeah, the initial part was quite tough, Subhash, to be honest, but but it gave me a lot of time to reflect on things, on what's happened, how I've been working, whether I should actually change some of my approaches. And yeah, I've been reading quite a few books. I've been also, not necessarily football books. I've also been watching clips of games. I don't have the patience sometimes to watch through the whole match when I've already seen it. Although every time I see a match, the same match, I see it a few times, I see different things. That's it's amazing. I think many coaches will tell you that they watch one match and they watch it a few times and they see different things. Unfortunately, my wife doesn't agree with it. She always asks me, "How come? I thought I saw you watching this match last week, and then the week before." So they don't understand, and we have to explain to them what we actually do.
So we'll move on to a lighter topic, football, in comparison to what's happening in the world. Okay, so you have managed in multiple countries and you have experienced a lot of footballing culture, different footballing culture. How are the cultures different in the different countries you have managed?
Actually, I've only spent my out of Singapore sojourn in Myanmar.
Yeah,
that was the only where I coached a team. And that is not the national team, it is a club team. This is how it actually transpired. Until 2009, I was in Singapore. I started my coaching career sometimes with the national setup in 1986 when I was the youth under 21 national coach. Then I became the second national team coach, which they used to call the intermediates in 87 and 88. And 89, 90, 91, I was the Olympic team coach, all for Singapore. And 92, 93, I became the national coach for Singapore. And then I went back to the clubs. And in 1996, Singapore started its Super S League, professional league, which really took off very well. For 3-4 years, we were bringing in very good crowds. There was good football being dished out. I was initially a technical director of Tanjung Pagar, one of the founder members of the S League. And then at 1998, the itch to get back to coaching, because technical director, you have to sit behind the desk sometimes, pushing a pen. It's not so easy when you always find yourself from the pitch going to behind the desk. So I had to find a job that gives me the pleasure, and I went to Balestier, one of the S League clubs in the S League then, and was with them for 4 years. Then the FA had an opening for a assistant technical director, as well as one who can coach the under-23 team for the SEA Games. So I went back to the FA again, familiar surroundings, although not many people were the same from 1992-93. And then I spent maybe until 2007 at the FA. I became technical director in 2004. So 2004 to 2007, I was the technical director there. And then 2008 and 9, I went back to coaching again. I told you about the itch that I have. I went back to Home United, which is one of the premier clubs. Steve Darby, Robert Alberts, some very illustrious coaches who have been working there. So I went to work with them. 2 years, my contract, the second year, my contract was not renewed. So I was actually looking for a job. And suddenly, out of the blue, I get this call from an agent friend from Malaysia saying that, hey, there's an opening for a head coach in the Myanmar Professional League. I nearly fell off my chair because Myanmar at that time was still under the junta, the army. And I said, you mean they have a professional league? He said, yeah, they've pumped in a lot of money. A lot of foreign players are there, foreign coaches, because Myanmar was at that time a very closed society. If you remember, they were known as the former Burma. And when they were Burma, they were kingpins in Asian football. But when the country was taken over by the generals, so to speak, their football took a back seat. And so they were trying to revive the game because they knew important of football as a nation-building exercise. So yes, I went to one of the clubs called Okta. I had a very good chat with the owner of the club. And I must reserve a special word of mention for him because he really was very open. He told me what he wanted and he let me do my job, which has not been the case in many, many places that I worked in. And of course, when he saw things that he didn't like or when he heard of things he didn't like, he always contacted me and then said, we had a chat or sometimes we went over for a meal. And I had very good experiences. So I spent about 8 and a half years in Myanmar with the same club, except for 2012 and 13, where I was asked to go to another club up in the north called KBZ United, who now are known as Shan United, one of the top clubs there, up in the north near the Chinese border. And then after that, I've been back with them most of the time. So it's been a good love relationship with them. Not love-hate, but love.
So you have been involved in the Myanmar League for quite a while, according to your words.
Yeah.
And maybe like a person like me and many other, we do not know much about the Myanmar League. Can you just elaborate how competitive or what is the level of the league that they play there?
Okay, when we started in 2010, or when they started the league in 2010, the level was high because they brought in very good foreign players. They were willing to pay, and they brought in some good coaches. So names like Ken Worden and Jurgen Gert, and there were some very good. There was one former Manchester United player called. His name slips my mind now, but it'll come back sure because I know him quite well. So there were big names in foreign coaches as well as players. So from Brazil, from Africa, from Europe, from Croatia. So they sort of literally lifted the league. There was good crowds, 25, 30,000 in the opening years. But most of the game was restricted to Yangon, which is the capital, which is a commercial capital. The actual capital is in Naypyidaw. So most of the teams were actually assembled there. So Myanmar's objective has been to try to decentralize the league, try to regionalize it, to get more participation, which is logical. So now it has really spread out to some of the other regions as well. The standard of the football, you can see that the players were not really coached. They had speed, they had big hearts. There were a lot of street football kind of players because they were able to make some kind of decisions on the field which you never expect them to do. Very good decisions. But from a tactical perspective, they struggled because they were not developed in the correct way from a young age because of the junta's regime. But over the years, the money has dropped. I think priorities for the club owners have changed. Initially, it was a nation building thing, but now it seems they have lost that interest. So the quality of the foreigners has dropped. The number of foreigners has dropped. Hardly any foreign coaches now. I think I was the last one for the last 2 years until December 2019, and now they don't have any foreigners. So I've seen the league at its zenith, at its height, but then it has gradually dropped.
So you also coached at the national level and also at club level. Which one do you prefer personally?
I prefer working for the club. I mean, most coaches say that, and I agree with them, because that is a day-to-day activity. You get yourself really immersed in the job. But I don't mind the national coach's job as well, because that gives you more time to go and do scouting, to sit down and talk to players, where you can really get into the minds of players when the team is not together. Of course, with permission from the head coaches of the clubs. And most clubs, when you're open as a national coach, when you're open with them, you have meetings with them before the season starts, and they are very open to let their players be met by you to have a chat with them. So yeah, generally that I would prefer to be a club coach, because that keeps my engine running daily.
So you have worked in so many roles in football, as you just said, like technical director, head coach, assistant coach, chief instructor, to name a few. Which role is your personal favorite? Do you like, is your passion, which you like to do on a regular basis?
If you ask me now, I would tell you without a doubt, I would like to mentor young coaches. Mentoring is now is the thing, because there are a lot of coaches, in my opinion, who could do with a little bit of guidance, a little bit of advice from one who has seen the Steve Darby's, the Stephen Constantines. They've all been in this kind of head coach role, and the experience that they have gained over those years would be fantastic for the up and coming younger coaches. So mentoring is my favorite now. Is it because I've become older? I'm 68 now. I can still work on the field. I still enjoy working in the field. But I think now I would like to give back something to the younger coaches. So that is my at the moment. But if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you, no, I want to coach. I wanted to coach daily. And I've had this mentoring experience now in Myanmar with my previous team. And now the local coach has taken over, and they're doing quite well. I've just started some work with Cambodia, one of the professional league clubs, also as a mentor of the local coach. And I seem to be enjoying that.
So, as a mentor, what do you do with the coach? What do you give them your experience, share experience with them, or is it more of education?
But it's both. But my first attempt at mentoring was, I became too hands-on. I think I had to do it at that time in Myanmar, because the coaches really need their hands to be held. They needed that support. But over the last 2 years, I have actually released my hands. I've stayed away. I've taken trips out of the country just to let a coach run the thing, but I'm in contact with him from wherever I am. So that is the most important thing, I think, in mentoring. Mentoring is not telling them what to do every time. Mentoring is letting them do what they think is right, and then to guide them along. So that would be that is what I enjoy doing.
So now we'll get to more of a tactical side of your coaching. If you had to describe your team as a coach, what would be the adjective that would describe your team the best?
Cellar dwellers. Actually, I prefer working with young teams without big names. That is, if you look back at my background, that has always been the case. Even when I went to Myanmar, this team that I coached called Okta United, they've changed the name now to Hantawadi. Hantawadi is a region in the Bago area. Anyway, the coach, the owner told me that the team is very young. There are no national players. All the other clubs have been clamoring for national players when the league started. So he said he decided to go for young players. He wanted me to mold them up. So mold them not only in football sense, but as an individual, as a personality. So that is what really drives me. So when I was there in 2010, we finished in the league, I think 8th position, but we won the FA Cup in the first year. And so the style of play, I I would love to play a game of possession, where you dictate, where you are able to change the tempo of a game, use players' individual ability to outplay opponents. That is I would love to do that. But throughout my coaching career, except for the period in '93 when I was Singapore national coach and we had our so-called dream team then, when we went up the Malaysia Cup finals but lost in the finals. That was a team that had everything from the goalkeeper right up. It had speed, it had charisma, it had intelligence, it had uh, maybe one thing that was lacking was a group unity in that group, because they were all stars in their own right. So obviously there'll be some, and maybe if I look on reflection, maybe I could have handled that better. But that is how we learn things, and I've learned that. So coming back to what I would like to do, what type of team, what do I describe myself? I would say I'm call it a Mr. Fix It. You have a problem with the team is struggling. Okay, I'm ready to come on and maybe help.
So like you said, you like going to different countries. Maybe you went to Myanmar and now Cambodia. What is the major problem or one difficulty that you face, as a foreigner to a country, as a coach?
I think like in countries like Myanmar and Cambodia, which is not okay. Cambodia is better developed than Myanmar. They look upon the foreigner differently, which I think is quite common everywhere. But in Myanmar, they sort of they look upon you as someone above them, unfortunately. And quite a number of the foreigners have taken advantage of that and have treated the locals quite badly. But in my experience, whether it's my nature or the way I was brought up, I've always been one who tries to go down to their level, try to learn the language, which is not easy, which I have not, I can tell you I've not mastered the language, but I can easily go take a training session in anywhere in Myanmar and let the players understand what I want from the basic words that I know. So yeah, these two countries, they would look at a foreigner in a different way. But if you go to say a more advanced country, like say like Australia, where they will look at you as a foreigner and say, okay, let's see what you can teach me. Those would be the two different kind of. So in my work with FIFA and AFC as a coaching instructor and coach education mentor, I've been mostly to most of the countries that are, would you say, maybe third world countries. Yeah, there's countries that are struggling, not only in football but overall economically, politically. And I've always tried to go there to help, not from, okay, to try to impart whatever I can with a view where I don't make them fear me. I've been a friend, mostly. And I find that kind of atmosphere, that kind of environment gets the best out of the locals.
So, as a technical director or chief instructor, you would have come across a lot of coaches, and even as you said, you worked for FIFA, going to third world countries to educate people or coaches. What's the one maybe common problem you see among coaches, in these countries?
Mostly it is in these countries that I've been to. Mostly it is one of a lack of confidence. They think they are much inferior to other countries. Whether it is due to a lack of knowledge, a lack of opportunities to get more knowledge, because the internet is an amazing tool. But if you do not know, if you don't understand English, then you are always struggling, because most of it is in English. And that's what I've told the Myanmar coaches, the Cambodian coaches as well. So a lot of the countries have people who struggle in this area because they lack that self confidence. And but the difference is, if you can really connect with them, if you can really make an impact with them, it's amazing. It's in fact not amazing. May not be the right word. It's very self-satisfying to see how they develop. And I have experienced that in even during my coaching courses. If it's an A license and it's 4 weeks, and in the first week I find some participants are really struggling big time, and I spend a little bit more time to help them even during off classes. And then when they come up in the last week of the course and show some progress or some improvements, it delights me.
So, you have called yourself Mr. Fix-It, okay? And so now the next question is, what is your go-to formation when you go to a new team? What would you like to implement? Which formation?
Yeah, I don't have any particular formation that I think that could be suicidal. Because if you go in there, they are struggling, and you say, okay, here is the solution to your problems. Just change to a 4-4-2 from a 3-5-2 that they were doing. So I think that first for me is to just sit down, watch them, talk to them through an interpreter if the language is a difficulty, watch their previous matches, and find what they really lack. And when I went to Myanmar, the team was playing a 4-4-2. I saw that they had two good strikers, both were foreigners, but they didn't have good support from midfield. So it was really not so much changing the formation, just trying to identify maybe there were better players in the reserves who were not picked by the previous coach, who could actually see this as an opportunity where a new coach has come, which means he may have a chance. So yeah, so there's no particular formation that I look at, but I would like to see the teams that I coach play a brand of football which is pleasing to the eye, and of course win the points.
Okay, so the next question is would PN Sivaji, the player, get into your team?
Aha, that's a good question. I enjoyed football. When I was staying in the naval base, the British naval base in Singapore, and then the British were we were just a colony of the British. So they had a British naval base where British ships used to come, warships used to come for repair. My father used to work there, and I was a kid, and I was also schooling in that area. We used to watch a lot of football by the British sailors. The warships that came would have teams to play while the ship is being docked and repaired. The sailors were free in the evenings, so they would play matches against the local teams, to play matches amongst themselves, and I used to enjoy watching them. I started off as a defender. I started off as a left back. You know why? Because the team that I was there for training and looking for selection trials, they didn't have a left back. They didn't have. I'm not left-footed. I'm right. I was right-footed. I would like to think as the years went by, I became two-footed. So I chose the position that was available, and in that period, I sort of impressed the coach with more of my work behavior, work attitude, and then I developed. So I became, from a left fullback, I became a right fullback, and then I went back to as a centre back. We used to play a back four with a sweeper then, so I used to play as a sweeper. Apparently, they thought that I could read the game quite well. Then in my last years of playing, when I was about 35, still playing in the Division 3 of the local league, I played as a striker because I didn't want to run too much. They always played the ball to me, and I kept the ball, and I started to play to people, and then so that was so I would say I'm a player who has been through three positions, not in midfield unfortunately, but as a striker, yes, as a centre back, yes, and a fullback.
No, but would he get into your team?
Yeah, that was the question. I was trying to avoid that. Huh? Okay, I think I would struggle because I was a decent player, and I was in the national team's squad as a player. I had some very good contemporaries in my time who became national players, and I even went for national selection. But I used to wear glasses and play. But that time contact lenses were available, not the soft ones, the hard ones were available. but they cost a bomb. At that time, it was 400 Singapore dollars, which was totally out of our capability of purchasing. So I feel that if it was not for my astigmatism, I may have been at least a squad member, maybe not the first 11, but at least a squad member.
No, with your vast experience, do you have any advice for any coaches coming up? Like young coaches.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that I get asked quite a few times, even in coaching courses as well. I think that for young coaches, it is about observing and learning and asking, not being afraid to ask. Try to identify a mentor who you think you will benefit from. I think he should learn to be very inquisitive. He or she should learn to be very inquisitive, to be very open to ideas, but not accept everything. Do not accept everything that you see or that you hear. Challenge it, but challenge it in a way that the other person does, the senior coach doesn't get upset. But challenge it. Don't accept everything. So that would be my advice. Be confident. Keep an open mind. Learn from the better coaches, but at the same time, don't just copy and paste. Be inquisitive. Try and challenge.
So like this question has just crept into my mind. Okay, so I had done my diplomas in scouting and youth from Barcelona. So when I come back here in Nepal, I see many coaches, who are good, but they lack confidence. Maybe like how you said, they lack confidence in many third world countries. So like what would be your advice to them? Like so that they can gain confidence or they can be confident enough to present themselves front of maybe a foreign coach, which is again, as you said, people generally look upon, like if a foreign coach comes in, they especially from maybe from Europe, they look very high upon the person. It doesn't matter whether that person has education or has good knowledge or not, but they automatically have that superior status. So how do these coaches have can get confidence to maybe express themselves without upsetting like how you said, the superior or the head coach?
The first thing is you have to respect the position. So if the club has or the management have appointed someone to be the head coach, you respect him. But I think in your experience, my experience, we have seen coaches come and go. Some coaches come with big names, but they cannot instill what they want, the way they work, into some certain environments. So if you ask me, what should a young coach look out for? I think first of all you can't run away from the confidence factor. I think that's very important. You must try to. Your confidence doesn't come automatically. Confidence comes from basically what you know. So try to build your knowledge base. I think that's important. And building a knowledge base is not enough because you need to practice what you have learned. You need to look for that opportunity. So if you get opportunities to work at any level, that will be very, very useful because that is going to help you develop your confidence. And the other thing is, of course, experience. Try to get, as I like to repeat, and I'm not advertising for a job, but try to get a good mentor where he's there to guide you, but at the same time, he's there to leave you out, to get those knocks. Because if you don't get the knocks, you don't learn. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. So how do you make mistakes? Is to do things on your own, but you know that there's somebody there to maybe salvage you when the thing is going to get worse. So I think that would be my advice.
So on that note, I'll ask you one final question. Okay, it's a very controversial. Generally, people say it's controversial question. And whom do you prefer, Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo?
Without giving any thought to it, I would say it's Lionel Messi, because I see the way he plays, some of the things he does with the ball. This is what I want to see in football. I think they are both two different players. They are both very well driven, strongly driven to win. But you see, when Messi plays, it brings a smile to your face. It brings joy. I don't say that Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't do that. But I feel that Cristiano Ronaldo's attributes are more on strength, power, dynamics. These are his biggest talents. So I, without a doubt, would say Messi is my style of play that I like.
So on that note, Mr. Sivaji, thank you so much for talking to us, and we wish you all the best with your future campaigns, with what you have started with a league team in Cambodia, and hope you get whatever you strive for. And thank you so much for coming on the show, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking through Steve Darby, and I wish you all the best in your show.
Thank you.